Do you find yourself losing loads of material at the beginning of every chess game and not knowing what moves to make? Well, today I'm going to be going over 10 chess openings you need to know to improve at the game. By knowing the moves and ideas behind these openings, you will improve drastically at the game of chess and your rating will skyrocket. Now without further ado, let's get into the video. The first opening I'm going to be going over, and the most popular that white plays, is called the Italian opening. It starts with e4, e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, and then bishop c4. This is a very strong opening for you to play as white in chess, as it allows you to create a lot of attacks on the weak f7 square in the black position, and it allows you to castle early. Now I am going to show you a quick move order on how white can gain a massive advantage early on during the game. Look at this example, how white very easily swarmed black and ended up checkmating them by exploiting the weak f7 square. By adding this strategic opening to your repertoire, you are sure to earn lots of rating points and improve at the game. The second opening I'm going to be going over is called the Sicilian Defense. It's a very strategic and complex opening to learn and is one of the most popular responses to e4 that black can make. Even though the Sicilian Defense is very complex and dynamic, I'm going to show you a very simple way that you can ensure that you play it properly. Today I'm going to be showing you one of my favourite ways to play the Sicilian Defense that is easy to learn, and it's called the Accelerated Dragon variation. It starts with e4 and you respond with c5, the Sicilian Defense. White then plays knight to f3 and you respond with knight to c6. Next, white plays knight to c3, developing their knights out, and you play knight to f6, doing the same. Next they play d4, taking space in the centre, and you take with your outside pawn, and they take back with their knight. You then play g6, which is the Accelerated Dragon variation, wanting to put your bishop on g7 and create a very wide range of attack for your bishop on this diagonal. Next, white normally plays bishop to d3, and you play bishop g7, and white plays castles, and you play castles. This leads to a very dynamic game for black, and it can create very good winning chances, and allows black to equalize with white. The third opening I'm going to cover is called the Roy Lopez, or the Spanish. It is very similar to the Italian, which I covered at the start of the video, but with one key difference. Instead of playing bishop to c4, you instead play bishop to b5. Many grandmasters choose to play this over the Italian due to the fact that it leads to more varying positions, and also due to the fact that it's also a very theoretical opening. But today I'm going to show you one of the mainline ways to play it as white. Like the Italian, it starts with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, but instead of bishop to c4 like the Italian, you play bishop to b5, attacking this knight. Sometimes you can trade here and double the pawns and take the pawn in the centre, but not in this line. In this line, black plays knight to f6, and after they play knight to f6, you want to castle. Black may think they can take this pawn in the centre, but it's a trap, because after they take it, you play rook to e1, and you're pinning the knight and the pawn to the king. So if the knight retreats, for example, you take the pawn in the centre, and after they take back, and you take, they have to block with the bishop. And then if you, for example, play knight to c3, developing your knight, and they play b6, wanting to fianchettle their bishop, you can already very quickly overrun their position and play knight to d5, attacking this bishop. They can no longer defend it, and so you'd want to play castles. And then after knight takes, king moves, takes, takes, you're already in a winning position on move 11, which is why this is a very strong opening for you to learn. The fourth opening I'm going to cover is called the Queen's Gambit Declined, which is a very solid way to play against the Queen's Gambit that white can play against you, and allows you to play a very positional and long game which can give black very good winning chances. So it starts with d4, d5, and then c4, which is the Queen's Gambit, and you respond with e6, keeping your pawn structure solid. Next, white normally plays knight to c3, and you respond with bishop to e7. Next, they normally take the pawn in the center, and you take it back with your pawn, and then they play bishop to f4, just developing their bishop out, and you play knight to f6, getting ready to castle. Then they normally develop their knight to f3, and then you play your pawn to c6, strengthening your center and keeping your center very solid. They then normally play h3, stopping your knight from jumping in, and then you just castle, and this leads to a very good position for black and can allow them to get a winning position quite easily by maybe putting their queen here and try and create some sort of threat on the b2 pawn. The fifth opening I'm going to cover is called the King's Indian Defense. It's a very solid response to play to d4 as black and can lead to a very tactical game and you winning. This opening is very straightforward to learn, as all the moves are played exactly the same no matter what your opponent does. You play the position like so as black, so it starts with d4 and you respond with knight to f6. They then normally play c4, taking space in the center. You ignore it and just play g6, preparing to defeat and kettle your bishop. They then normally play knight to c3, developing their knight. You then play bishop g7, putting the bishop on a long diagonal. They then play knight to f3, putting both their knights out, and then you castle, getting your king out of the center, preparing to maybe play rook e1 and attack their vulnerable king that's still in the center. Then they normally play e3, connecting their pawns together, and you then play d6, taking some space in the center, but indirectly. This is a very strong opening to play at any level, and especially in short time control, as you don't need to think about your moves as much, and this bishop on the long diagonal can be very tricky and catch your opponent off guard. And that's 5 openings you must learn. And that's 5 openings you need to learn in chess. I know I said I'd do 10, but this video's already took long as is, so I'm going to split it up into 2 parts. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications to get notified when part 2 comes out. If you enjoyed the video, then please go and check out my Twitch. I stream on there quite often, and maybe donate as well, as I have a donate tab. But apart from that, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one.